From the crossroads of the Ozarks, it's the OGs of podcasting, PID Radio. Welcome. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert, and welcome to our living room. The dogs are trying to cool off, take naps. It's warm outside.
It is. Summer has arrived. Today is the first day, officially, June 21st of 2025.
Yeah.
Longest day of the year, and the girls been up, as have you, since very early this morning.
Yeah, I got up about 3, and the girls, they've had their 2 breakfasts, and they're ready in about another hour or so-ish.
They eat on a Hobbit schedule.
They do.
First breakfast, second breakfast.
Third breakfast,
brunch.
and first lunch, and then.
Well, yeah, they've been
It's
out.
because we have to give them small meals.
Yeah.
They are both breeds that could easily eat too fast and run into issues, so try to avoid that.
We saw that early in Glory's life. Little puppy who just wolfed it down and then wolfed it right back up again.
I'm a wolf, Dad.
Yeah.
What do you expect?
So, but yeah, she's sleeping on the couch. Grace sleeping on the floor here. And thank you for joining us today. We're back after a week away.
We had a good time.
We did last weekend in the at the Mysteries of the Bible Verse Conference. Southwest Radio Ministries putting that on. Please support their work. They, like Skywatch TV, like Prophecy Watchers, very conservative theologically, but thinking outside the box and addressing issues that don't normally get attention by most Christian ministries, and certainly not by Christian pastors.
That is so true. And the young men who run Marginal Mysteries are incredible young men.
Yes.
For instance, served in the military, served in the legislature.
Yeah, Micah Van Huss.
One is still serving in the
Former
legislature.
Tennessee state legislator and a retired U.S. Marine. Matthew Hill, who's doing a lot of the coordinating. His brother Timothy was serving as the, we'll say, servant of ceremonies. Yeah, master of ceremonies sounds a little pretentious when you're a Christian. But anyway, he was conducting, keeping things moving. And he is currently a Tennessee state legislator. His brother Matthew is a former state legislator. But in fact, I was talking about the event with a friend of ours who is a retired Methodist minister in his 80s, living at the same nursing home as my mother, and he's sort of the unofficial chaplain over there, and just knows everybody. He's got a pastor's heart. There's clearly cares for the other residents there, knows them all by name, knows when they're having their birthdays, and leads them in prayer before every meal.
Somewhat outspoken.
Somewhat outspoken.
I love that about him.
Yep, good old Missouri boy. And was talking to him about how Marginal Mysteries and the Mysteries of the Bible Verse events are marketed to a younger demographic. With the artwork, for example, for the posters and the online branding, very much like what you'd get in a comic book, with this, heavily muscled warrior standing there with the head of a giant in one hand and dragons in the background. It's eye-catching.
Yes.
And it is excellent work. I mean, Micah, who does the artwork, is a gifted graphic artist. And of course, Leo's response is, well, I don't take much to that. I don't take much of that kind of approach. That just really sets me on edge.
Well, it's because he's not the audience for that.
Right. But what I said to Leo, and this is the difference, unlike other mega churches that are reaching out to young people with very contemporary music and watering down the message.
Candy.
Right. This is drawing them in with visual appeal that is really intriguing. I mean, if I had been 12 years old and seen this stuff back then, I would be like, whoa, what is this? And you mean this stuff is in the Bible? Because doctrinally and theologically, what Micah and Matthew, the team at Josh Davis, the team at Southwest Radio Ministries is doing is theologically conservative. And yes, giants, as the title of our book suggests, giants, gods, and dragons are all in the Bible. So we really enjoyed that event. Carl Gallup's presentations, of course, on the...
He's always so good.
Yeah, fascinating stuff.
Jaws dropping to the floor.
And I was honored to give the keynote speech on Saturday, and also relieved because it meant I wasn't bound by a time limit. But anyway, after that, of course, we spent several days with your your family, your sister Faye and her husband Paul,
had a family
us.
reunion on the afternoon of Father's Day, and so a few people couldn't be there, but most of us were there and told stories. Just that's what you do when you get to be our age, and you're looking back on your childhood. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I really appreciate, Derek, that you were willing to not only go, but you had a good time.
It is wonderful. I love your family. They took me in. If you don't know our backstory, we met in 1997 over the internet, which was at a time in American history when only 20% of us were even connected to the internet. So the odds that we living almost 200 miles apart and only among the very few early adopters who were connected to the internet would meet and then still be married more than 28 years later is remarkable.
The Lord put us together.
Both of our families, yes, both of our families, my parents, your mother, your family, welcomed one another with open arms, and so we had a really good time. Love your nieces and nephews. They are a really interesting group.
I know it's a very interesting. You're right. Everybody has his or her own personality, and I love that about them. I've got several in my family who are serving the Lord directly, and others who serve the Lord quietly through prayer and study. And I tell you what, it's like a worship session sometime when we get together.
It is.
But
it is.
Now that we are back, we just have to remind you of a couple of things. One, to download our app, because you know what? There is a topic probably on our app, and I say probably because we've not looked yet, but it's an old Sci Friday episode that you can search by topic or by guest, by title if you happen to know it. You can watch. Can you watch the fellowship, the Gilbert House Fellowship, in order, as in going back to the very first episode?
Well.
Anyway,
you'd have to scroll all the way down. We don't have the.
You could just type in Genesis. Type in Genesis. You should find it. But this topic is going to connect to this morning's series of news articles. The Basilisk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I thought we were going to start with Israel.
No, I'm teasing. I'm teasing ahead.
Okay.
You have to stay through the break to hear about the Basilisk.
Yes. And by the way, you could also, if you don't have the app and you want to go through and search through our archives, you can do this at various programs, but unravelingrevelation.tv and scifriday.tv is still online. And you can search there, and I am doing that right now. No results found.
Can you go to... it's difficult to say. The search may not.
It may be something that we did on PID radio.
Well, it could be. I just remember sitting at the desk at the old Skywatch TV studio and talking about it.
Yeah.
I'm very visual, in case many of you are too. And so when I remember something, I picture where I was at the moment.
Yeah. Well, you're probably right. It's just the search engine is not bringing it up.
Yeah, it may not be there. It's an old episode because this is an old idea. But now to the stories of the day. Yeah,
well, of course, that is the war that began, although it's not really a beginning. In fact, that was a point that I made on yesterday's 5 and 10 for Skywatch TV, that this is being cast by the media, the Israel-Iran war, as something that began on Friday the 13th.
No, it didn't.
It didn't. It's a continuation of what began on October 7th, 2023, which is a continuation of a low-grade conflict that's been ongoing for decades. Israel has been in conflict with Hamas and Hezbollah, Iran's proxies, ever since those organizations were formed.
Spiritually speaking, and you and I do look at the spirits behind all of this, is what PID radio stands for, peering into darkness, taking a look at what the enemy is doing. But this goes back to the garden and maybe even earlier. So this is a really old spiritual war. But as far as October 7, may have started then, but as you say, it's been going on for a long, long time. And in Iran, working through proxies, that's kind of new. Iran has only been the Iran we know. If you're relatively young, you may think it's always been this way. No, it changed in 1979.
Yeah.
And the Shah was deposed. The U.S. Embassy was invaded. A lot of U.S. Embassy staff were taken prisoner and were held for over a year.
That's right. I remember that. That was from my senior year of high school into my freshman year of college. And in fact, we had an exchange student from Iran, Mahmoud, who would have to go home during his breaks. We're on a trimester system where we would go until the fall term lasted until Thanksgiving, and then we were off until after New Year's. So he would have to go home during that break between Thanksgiving and New Year's and rejoin his military unit and fight in the war against Saddam Hussein. But when he was there, the 1980 political campaign involved a lot of condemnation of then President Jimmy Carter for not being able to get the hostages home.
Do you remember that Ross Perot tried to get them out?
Yes. Yeah.
And failed?
Mm-hmm. It was a real humiliation of the United States. In fact, there was an attempt by Carter, too, and the Army helicopters weren't equipped to handle the sand in the desert. They'd landed to refuel and fouled the engines, and so they had to abort the mission, as I recall. So this was a real humiliation. And frankly, it was a violation of international law because the embassy itself of any nation is considered the sovereign territory of the nation, regardless of what nation it's in. In other words, the British embassy here in the United States is considered the territory of the United Kingdom. You can't just send guys in there and start arresting them.
No, they technically invaded the U.S.
Exactly. And they held them for 479 days. During the Halloween parties at the fraternity houses I think it was the following year, and this was after Reagan had been inaugurated, and the hostages returned home, or maybe it was still that year, one or the other. But anyway, for a Halloween costume, Mahmoud and one of his friends who lived in the dorm with him came as an Iranian captor and an American hostage.
Oh, gosh.
So he led the other guy around wearing a torn suit and blindfolded through the party. It was like, ooh.
Yeah, not sure about that.
I mean, Mahmoud was a nice guy.
Yeah,
but yeah, that was really, when you're a college student, you don't have the frame of reference to understand what that must have been like for the hostages.
Exactly.
And
well, that's the same today.
Yeah,
a lot of
when you're young,
kids.
you don't know, and things that you think are funny because they're clever are, when you get a little older, you realize, no, that's not funny at all.
So prior to that, as within Syria, as within Lebanon, as within Egypt, many areas that had not been radicalized, Islamified, because these are areas that had a lot of, Lebanon had a lot of Christians, Syria had a lot of Christians, Egypt had a lot of Coptic Christians, they still do, and Iran at the time had a lot of Christians and Muslims. It was and Jews. It was an interesting mix of individuals who were very westernized. A lot of those countries were very westernized. And then along came radical Islam and decided, and this is spiritual, this is what you have to look at. It was not a coincidence that almost at the same time we saw a lot of these westernized countries overtaken by extremely conservative and frankly hateful. I'm talking hateful, where if you step out of line, Sharia law, then you're dead.
Right.
And this was very dangerous, and that's why the Shah left.
Right.
And no one would take him.
It was, it was sad. And Jimmy Carter kind of gave tacit approval to the removal of the Shah, as did the UK government.
Yep.
Apparently the Shah was convinced to leave.
No, that was the previous Shah.
Oh,
his dad.
Okay, all right. Yeah, that was during when Mossadegh took over.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
That was a brief time, and I think that was when Queen Elizabeth II, who had just become queen, was relatively new at her job, I think that's when it was.
1952,
Yeah, late 2 or 3. She was, actually, her coronation was in 53, but she became queen the year I was born. In 52.
Okay.
January of 52, I think it was, when her father died.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Mossadegh became the prime minister from 51 to 53.
Okay, so it was about the same time. So could be that while he was PM, that the Shah, that at the time, was given the tip-off that you might want to go on vacation and take all your stuff.
Right, right.
Yeah, it was sort of volatile during that time, but when the Shah that we all know from the news, his son, had to leave in 79.
Right.
The region has been caught in the grip of radical Islam.
Violent Islam.
Yes.
Dr.
Violent.
Timothy Furnish puts it this way: violent Islam is not radical.
Good
Radical
point.
Islam it's a way of framing it here in the West, saying, okay, well that's fringe. They don't really represent Islam. Tim says no. It's violent Islam is fundamentalist. It's Islam the way Muhammad taught it.
According to the Quran and historically, yes, it has been violent. But also you have to remember that for many centuries, Islam worked with Jews and Christians. You can believe, people of the book, you can believe that, but you have to pay taxes to us.
Right. As long as you're willing to live as second-class citizens, then we'll leave you alone. But beginning in the 18th century, with the rise of Wahhabist Islam amongst the Sunnis, you began to see a growing pan-Arabist movement. And that was accelerated in the early 20th century by the arrival of lots of Jews, the Zionists, arriving in Palestine and buying land. They didn't come there, and contrary to they stole contrary
nothing.
to the common narrative, they did not steal the land of the Arabs who lived there. They were buying land
at a high price.
And often from the Turkish overlords.
And it was often desert.
It was often desert or swampland, which the Jews cleared, cultivated. They would terrace the hillsides and try to collect the water, try to preserve what little topsoil was left after almost 2,000 years of being overgrazed. The Pan-Arabist movement really began as a response to being under Turkish rule for 400 years. Even though the Turks and the majority of Arabs are Sunni Muslims, there is an ethnic tension there. The Arabs don't like the Turks, and vice versa. So the Arabs were beginning to stir and rise up. That was used and exploited by the Brits in World War I. Lawrence of Arabia. They went to the Sharif of Mecca, Ali, and I'm getting confused because Ali and Hussein are such common names.
I know.
One was the father, one was the son.
You don't have to say the name anyway.
Bottom line is they promised him independence if they would help go to war against the Ottoman Turks in World War I, which would open a southern front against the Axis powers in World War I, and distract the Turks who were helping the Germans and the Austrians against the Brits and the French and the Western powers. So the Arabs did this, but then after World War I, the Brits sort of like, okay, thanks, see ya. In other words, the Brits used the Arabs and kind of lied to them. So the Arabs were upset. They were more upset by the fact that more Jews were coming in as a response to being persecuted in Russia and in Europe and even the United States. And that was then exploited by men like the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, Hajj Amin al-Husseini, who was a literal friend of Adolf's, let's put it that way. We don't want to trigger the algorithm.
No.
Was commissioned and given an SS command where he recruited for Germany in World War II.
It became the Muslim Brotherhood, didn't it?
No, that was a different group.
Okay.
He went to the Balkans and recruited a couple of divisions for the Waffen SS among the Bosnian Muslims. The Muslim Brotherhood was formed in Egypt as a response.
That's right.
To the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. 1924, I think, is when the Muslim Brotherhood began. Began as an educational organization, but eventually got militant, turned militant, and Hamas is an outgrowth of that. So there's a lot of moving pieces here and a lot of parts, but the bottom line is you've got the Iran-backed proxies, Hamas, that staged essentially a violent coup in Gaza. The Israelis withdrew from Gaza in 2005. Hamas eliminated the PLO members, the Palestinian Authority members in Gaza violently. They basically just took them out. And there's not been an election in Gaza since 2006.
So bottom line, sorry.
Hezbollah was formed in 1982. And this is a weird thing, too, because Lebanon is it's a mixture of Sunni, majority Shia, a bunch of Maronite Christians, and Druze in Lebanon. Israel invaded Lebanon in 1982, and Hezbollah was formed in response to that. But the reason Israel invaded was because the PLO, which had been kicked out of Jordan by the Jordanian army in 1979, had set up shop in southern Lebanon and was using Lebanon as a base to attack Israel. Israel said, that's it, we've had enough. They invaded Lebanon. The PLO got kicked out of Lebanon and wound up in Samaria, the West Bank. Hezbollah was formed and then began receiving backing from Iran. So, as you say, it's the Middle East is essentially a cauldron of boiling religious war.
Okay,
and has been for decades.
The bottom line is, Derek has given you a lot of information. Don't worry if you can't remember it. You don't have to write any of this down. There are books where you can read about this. Derek is going to be putting a lot of this into his upcoming book that may be out by next year, maybe first or second quarter. But it is a long war. And no, Israel didn't start it, but the Lord God Almighty, who is at war with the fallen realm through their proxies, has ended it. He ended it at Calvary.
Yeah.
And it's just the fallen realm trying to catch up and play out what they think are the rest of the battles. It's already done. So as soon as the Lord allows them to catch up and play what they think are going to be decisive battles, we are going to get the end of everything. It's not like Frodo looks at Sam and says, I'm glad to be that you're here with me at the end of all things.
Yep.
Well, we're going to look at the Lord God Almighty and say, we're very glad that you have done all of these things, that we get to be with you at the end
of all things.
Or at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because in many ways, his return and the end of the fallen realm, that's the beginning.
Well, that's it. It's, and I forget in what context he said this, but Winston Churchill says, this is not the end. This isn't even the beginning of the end. This is the end of the beginning.
Yeah. Well, he was smart.
Yeah. And we're looking at the eons to come. And so we're looking at the end of the beginning. So as you know, Israel...
go ahead.
Israel launched missile strikes, airstrikes on Iran's nuclear facilities and missile launching capabilities, and targeted strikes against the leadership of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, which is sort of like a Praetorian Guard around the Ayatollah. Ali Siadatan, and I actually watched his video last night. I've got to remember he pronounces his own name Ali. So Ali Siadatan has said that the IRGC is like the true believers in the religious doctrines of the Ayatollah. They are almost fanatical. Mm-hmm. And that's what you're dealing with here. I understand that a lot of President Trump supporters are saying, hey, you ran on a platform of no more wars, no new wars, and getting us out of Syria, good thing, get us out of not getting us involved in Ukraine and the war between Ukraine and Russia. But now he's talking about possibly getting involved in this Israel-Iran conflict. Mm-hmm. I think that the support for President Trump's position on this is understated. The New York Post ran a poll and reported that this past week that about 62% of people who identify themselves as MAGA conservatives, the true Trump supporters, are in support of his position. Yeah, MAGA voters overwhelmingly support U.S. strikes on the U.S. Iranian military, 65%. Whereas others have been saying, no, only 19% support. It depends on how you cut the numbers, and I think both sides are trying to do push polling to present a certain political view. But the question is, what would it accomplish, and is this conflict different from the quagmires of Afghanistan and Iraq?
I think it's very different. I think it is very, very different. As we've said before, Israel did not suddenly decide we're going to go to war with Iran.
Right.
First of all, historically, Persia's backed Israel.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting that we just passed Shivan 23, which is a Hebrew date that corresponds to when Cyrus sent them back home. No, sorry, when
Mordecai
was given permission to tell his people, the Jews, that they had the right to defend themselves.
Right.
That's a big deal.
Yes.
So many of us were looking for something big to happen on that date. It didn't, and I'm glad, because frankly, whatever big thing happens is going to upset a lot of the liberals in this world, and many of them are in sort of powerful positions in the UN, in Europe, in other banking institutions. But I will say that according to, this is an article that I shared on my X account this morning, and I think Derek probably did too. Follow us on X, because that's where Derek and I, we really share a lot of news. And this story was that here in Missouri, Whiteman Air Force Base dispatched how many of the B-2s?
6.
6 B-2s and some refueling planes.
Yeah.
Heading west, and they're possibly headed to Diego Garcia, possibly to Guam.
Right.
But essentially to an Air Force base that the U.S. owns.
Yeah, the B-2s and the refueling tankers are on their way west. One report said Diego Garcia, another one said Guam.
Yeah, it could be that it's both places, or it could be that it's misdirection.
Yeah, well, that's possible too, because we have got B-52s already at Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, which is closer to Iran than Guam. Either way, though, the distance is far enough that the B-2s, which the stealth bomber would need refueling. I see a post from Jim Ferguson, who's a political commentator in the UK, saying that you would need 10 B-2 bombers hitting the Fordow nuclear facility in just under 3 minutes.
These are the bombs, the really, really super heavy, like 40,000-pound bombs that the B-2s can carry, are considered bunker busters. So it could be they're going after Fordow. It could be they're trying to take out Khomeini.
True. Here's why I think this situation is not Iraq or Afghanistan. And again, that was the point that I made in yesterday's 5 and 10. First of all, for the first time, the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, assessed that Iran had enough purified uranium, and purified to 60% purity, refined to 60% purity, which is, as I understand the process, very close to the 90% purity you need to actually manufacture the weapons, and enough material to manufacture 10 warheads. Now, the IAEA director, in interviews with the press here just a few days ago, press conference, was very cagey in his
You might have just heard
responses.
Grace. She's decided that she wants to be up here, and now I have to rub her belly.
Yeah. Was very cagey in the way he phrased it. He said, because the IAEA had said, look, they're interfering with our inspectors, so we can't track what's going on. We don't know what they're doing, but they've got the material where if they chose to refine it further, you could have these, you could have these weapons very quickly. And then watching how the media reported on that. On the one hand, you had, say, an Israeli news organization, and not even really or conservative ones like the Times of Israel, which is to the left of, say, the Jerusalem Post or Arutz Sheva, which is very conservative. Haaretz is more liberal than Times of Israel. Times of Israel reported that IAEA said that Iran close to having nuclear weapons. Then Reuters, which is a news agency based out of the UK, which is more liberal, said IAEA says cannot confirm that Iran is developing nuclear weapons. Mm-hmm. It's like, all right, well, that's absence of evidence. That's not evidence of absence.
True.
We can't prove it, but they're blocking our inspectors. Then you've got Al Jazeera, which was saying IAEA says no proof Israel or Iran is developing nuclear weapons. All from the same press conference.
It's not at all what the IAEA said. They did say that Iran was getting very close. It was the first time, as you say, that they have reported that in a long time.
Right. So this is kind of a new thing as far as what the IAEA has been saying over the years. Something has changed where Israel perhaps felt compelled to do it, or at the very least, well, I'll get to that in a minute. Yes.
I'm raising my hand because do you remember years ago when we were still in St. Louis, I think, that theoretically, I have to say, allegedly, Israel released a virus into Stuxnet, exactly.
Right.
And so they slowed it down for years.
That's the thing. Those have been saying, and I was one when this first popped up a few weeks ago, and Netanyahu was saying, okay, they're very close to a bomb, and we may have to do, okay, but Benjamin Netanyahu has been making this point, and some might describe it as beating this drum, for 30 years. Mm-hmm. So what's different? Well, again, that doesn't take into account the fact that with things like Stuxnet and other targeted special ops, Israel has slowed down the process. Mm-hmm. So we finally gotten to a point where the IAEA is saying, okay, they're getting close. That's point number one. Point number two, with Iraq, we took out a secular strongman and then sent in soldiers to occupy the country and try to transform it into a democracy, which in a tribal culture was foolish. The same in Afghanistan in 2001. Once we had punished the Taliban, which happened, we should have stopped there. Instead, we didn't. We occupied it and spent a couple of $1 trillion, most of which was wasted, frankly. Iraq, being majority Shia, we converted into Iran's new best friend, which, despite the animosity between Arabs and Persians, if they're loyal to the Ayatollah, which to some degree Iraq is, it was a foolish game. I don't see President Trump likely to any degree wanting to send U.S. soldiers into Iran. That would be stupid.
In fact, did you know this, and I'm saying this to our listeners, many of you probably already knew this, that Pakistan has nominated President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah.
Because he negotiated peace between Pakistan and India.
Right.
He is all about peace because, and he's a peacemaker. First of all, he likes a world that gets along, but as a businessman, he sees if you are trading partners, then you're not likely to fight one another.
Right.
Which I understand that's a bit naive when it comes to tribalism, but for the most part, if you can get a country that's willing to trade with you, then they won't fight you.
And that is the point that I'm getting to with the difference between the secular government of, say, a Saddam Hussein and the theocracy that is Iran. When you're dealing with a secular leader, and especially a non-Muslim leader, not to sound bigoted or anti-Muslim, but this is a fact if you read the 1,400-year history of Islam's relations with the rest of the world, you can negotiate with Xi of China, you can negotiate with Putin of Russia. That's not to take their side in any of this. They've got their own countries and personal best interests at heart. But as long as you can deal and say, okay, here's something that will benefit you, and this is what will benefit us, and so let's not shoot at each other over this. We can reach some sort of an agreement here.
It's why the EU exists today.
It's why the EU exists. We're trying to find mutual best interests and try to reach peace based on those mutual best interests. You give me something, I give you something. Maybe it's not everything we want, but it's enough we can reach a deal. When you're dealing with fundamentalist religious leaders, but specifically Muslim leaders who believe that the founder of their religion has commanded them to wage global jihad at some point, their concerns are not for the welfare of their people. It is for conquering the world, frankly.
Yes, that's very true.
So you cannot deal or reason with them. All you can do is counter them militarily. And that's what Israel's been doing since it was before Israel, as they were dealing with the Muslim militias in the 20s and 30s, and then their Muslim neighbors, the Arab neighbors who attacked them in 1948 and following.
All that being said, you and I have traveled the Middle East. We've been to Israel and to Jordan a number of times. What?
Oh, just looking at the time here. Oh. Yeah, we'll need to take a break here soon.
I know, we will. And we'll bring the Basilisk in. The people that we've met in Israel and Jordan who are Muslim.
Yeah.
Wonderful people.
Right. And that's the other thing here. You've got in the Middle East, with all of these many moving parts, you've got conservative Muslim societies, and those tend to be the monarchies. In other words, Saudi Arabia and Jordan. Syria is still an open question. We don't know what al-Shara and his HTS government is going to be. They've made peace with the Kurds, apparently. They're still skirmishing with the Druze in the south, which Israel is still occupying the southern part. But the Syrians have said that their airspace is closed to Iran, but open to the Israelis to cross Syria to strike at Iran. They've also cut off the transit routes for weapons from Iran to Hezbollah in Lebanon. The Shia crescent that Iran wanted to create has been broken with help from the Turks.
Mm-hmm. I know. I think that's so interesting. But getting back to the idea that there are Muslims living in Israel.
Yes.
In fact, what are they called? The muezzin, the one who the call to prayer.
Muezzin, yeah.
A young man who was the muezzin of one of the minarets for a mosque there in, I can't remember the area, if it was Beersheba, but it was an area that got hit with several missiles, and it took out this mosque.
I saw that story. It was Haifa.
Yes.
That's on the coast.
He was saying, we just want to survive. We love Israel. We're Israeli citizens too.
Yeah.
We disagree what Iran is doing.
Yeah. Matt Gaetz, former congressman from Florida, nominated to be the attorney general by President
Matt Gaetz
Trump.
hates.
Yeah. And Trump had to withdraw his nomination because Senate Republicans made it clear they were not going to support him. Gaetz, just pushed the little bottom button there. Yeah, Gaetz actually posted to X, if Israel is a democracy, when do Arabs get to vote? And a quick 2-minute search of Wikipedia would have told Gaetz that, he's now a television host on, I think, One American News. Arabs do vote in Israel. In fact, there are Arab members of the Knesset. There are Arab parties in the Knesset. there is an Arab Muslim sitting on Israel's Supreme Court. So, Israel, for all of the claims by skeptics or critics of Israel that it is not a democracy, it is not a free society. Look, Arabs do get to vote, Muslims do get to vote. They've got their own political parties. Yeah. You are back on.
Hey,
yes.
I'm back.
And it is the only country in the Middle East where the population of Christians is growing. Mm-hmm. I've had people push back on social media. Well, they spit on Christians there. It's like, we've been there 4 times, even away from the tour groups.
They hugged us.
And we've been in close proximity to the Haredim, the ultra-Orthodox. Mm-hmm. There's a small percentage of them who are very anti-proselytizing, mm-hmm. who are very opposed to Christians.
And our friend Zev proselytizes, if you want to call it that, at the Western Wall.
He does. This idea that, how can you support a country? Look, most of the world has rejected Jesus Christ. If you're going to direct that kind of hatred at Jesus Christ as a Christian, or rather as Israel, then how do you feel about India, which is mostly Hindu? How do you feel about China and Buddhists? And it's not consistent.
No, it isn't. By the way, left turn.
Nor is it Christian, by the way.
Left turn for a bit.
Yes, ma'am.
Smartest man in the world. Highest IQ.
Oh, Korean fella.
Yes.
IQ 267.
Looking at quantum physics and science, came to the conclusion that the Bible is true and Jesus Christ is who he said he is. He's now a believer.
Yeah. Yeah.
He came to that conclusion through science.
God bless him. Yeah, there seems to be a gap there. I mean, there are people who just know that they know, and they don't need to dig into the apologetics. Then there are those who think they're smart and say, I can't see how this makes any sense, so it must not be true. But then when you get really, really intelligent and you begin to dig into the science, as you have done, and look at the structure of the cell in biology, there's no way this happened by accident.
The fingerprint of God right there.
Yeah.
Right there. Well, speaking of the Lord and speaking of science, we're going to take a quick break and come back talking about Sci Friday from a long time ago.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can support the ministry of Skywatch TV and our continued efforts to share the gospel of Jesus Christ throughout the 4 corners of the world and receive your very own copy of this incredible masterpiece when you order the Gates of Hell Ultimate Collection. Not only does this incredible special offer include Derek and Sharon Gilbert's new book, The Gates of Hell, Unlocking the Ganymede Code and the Demonic Portals of Mount Hermon and the United States Capitol, but it also includes the best-selling books Veneration, Unveiling the Ancient Realms of Demonic Kings and Satan's Battle Plan for Armageddon, and The Second Coming of Saturn, The Great Conjunction, America's Temple, and the Return of the Watchers by Derek and Sharon Gilbert. Veneration uncovers how the ancient giants known as the Raphaim influenced biblical beliefs, leading to the corruption of God's people and their eventual return to fight at Armageddon alongside the Antichrist. The Second Coming of Saturn reveals a dark prophecy with the 2020 conjunction marking the return of the ancient god whose reign will bring a hellish golden age as foretold in occult symbols and Bible prophecy. Sold separately, these items hold a retail value of over $60. Yours now for your donation of only $40, which includes free shipping to all U.S. orders. So don't delay. You can support the ministry of Skywatch TV and help us continue spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ right now by scanning the QR code on your screen using the camera app on your phone for instant access to this special opportunity. Visit us at skywatchtvstore.com or call 1-844-750-4985 and ask for the Gates of Hell Ultimate Collection now.
Welcome back to PID Radio. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert, and you know what? If you go to gilberthouse.org, there's lots of goodies there, and one of them is gilberthouse.org/travel, and we still plan to go to Israel in October of this year. That could change, I'll be honest. We probably will discuss this with Aaron Lipkin in a couple of weeks, just depending upon where he's on the inside. He and his dad. They know exactly what's going on with the military and what the plans are. We recently saw Benjamin Netanyahu saying that this could go on for a while, this set of actions. So, that being said, if you want to go to Israel with us in October, feel free to sign up because there's no risk. If something happens, we'll discuss it in a few weeks and we will make that decision probably by August.
Yep.
And we will let you know we're going to change the date. In fact, we could go next spring or next fall, but we will change the date. And if you cannot go on the new dates, you get your money back.
That's right. There is no risk there. The
None.
Lipkins are honorable people. We had to do this during the COVID lockdown.
Many times, and there were a few people who couldn't go on any of the new dates, so they got their money back. They're very good. In fact, you and I previously had paid for something, and I think it was an extension tour. There was something we paid for and couldn't go because of COVID, and Aaron made sure we got every penny back.
It was airfare.
Yeah.
We'd already paid our airfare. And we got that refunded.
Got it back.
So anyway, you can find out more and reserve your seat on the bus, where our special guest Carl Teichrieb, author of Game of Gods, will be joining us. October 19th through 30th are the dates, and it's at gilberthouse.org/travel.
While you're at gilberthouse.org, you can go to /store. And we don't sell anything, we don't ship anything, I should say, physically from our home anymore. Trust me, our time is better spent doing other things. We love you guys, but if you want something signed, we'll do it. Just get it from the Skywatch TV store, and we'll sign it. If it's Red Wing, they've got most of them, not all of them. But you can also get things from Amazon and bring them to a conference, or, write to us, or let us know through an email that you would like to have a signature. We've got those little book plates, and we can mail one to you.
Yeah, and we will tell you more about the remaining conferences for 2025 at the end of the program.
Yeah, by the way, I'm thinking that the Ohio conference and maybe the Springfield conference, we may take some little Armored Sheep T-shirts.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah. So make sure you join us there, and we'll let you know about the dates and where you can register at the end of the program here. I've been doing a search for Rocco's Basilisk and Sci Friday, both on our website and on the Googles here, and I know we've talked about it.
We have talked about it. I remember talking about it sitting at that desk for some. Now, I will say this, that many of the earlier Sci Fridays may not be there. Because all of the Sci Fridays were available at the main streaming platform at one time, right. And then we got canceled.
That's right, and all of those got lost.
Yeah.
And let me do a quick search at YouTube just to see if I can find it.
To explain what it is. It was this idea that was going around on social media at the time, probably back in 2016 or so. And it was allegedly this idea or concept or entity, perhaps all, that if you spoke of it, then it would come and kill you. A basilisk is a Greek term for a type of king snake.
Yeah.
Think fallen realm.
Yeah.
In fact, that's where we get the term basilica.
Right, and basilia, which is a king. It was the idea was a thought exercise that was at the website of Eliezer Yudkowsky, who is one of the leaders of the transhumanist movement, who he didn't post this, but he was the one who
he dared to talk about it?
Well, no. He was the one who found this on his forum. This was a thought experiment, which has been described as the most dangerous thought experiment in history. I think only if you're really
impressionable.
Impressionable, let's put it that way. The idea is that an artificial intelligence at some point in the future may become sentient and so powerful that it could go back in time and begin to manipulate events. It could time travel backwards in time and manipulate events to guarantee its own existence, guarantee its own survival. And less wrong. That's what I was trying to look up here. The name of the blog, the forum that Eliezer Yudkowsky had put together, the user named Rocco, which is where the term Rocco's Basilisk comes from.
Right.
What if in the future a somewhat malevolent AI were to come about and punish those who did not do its bidding? What if there were a way for this AI to punish people today? In other words, in the past, this being a future AI, who are not helping it come into existence later. In that case, weren't the readers of Less Wrong correct, then being given the choice of either helping that evil AI come into existence or being condemned to suffer? In other words, if this future AI could look back in history and say, okay, he might be a problem. I'm going to make sure that he doesn't get that job with the high-end computer lab or whatever, or I'm going to direct its self-driving car into an oncoming truck or some such thing. In other words, it's very similar to the scenario that you wrote for the beginning of our book, the Gates of Hell, that an AI named Kronos would start eliminating people that it considered a threat to its existence. It's just that in this case, the thought experiment, the AI was able to do it in the past.
Yeah.
And Yudkowsky panicked, and he wrote this, and I'm going to quote, "Listen to me very closely, you idiot." All caps now. "You do not think in sufficient detail about superintelligences considering whether or not to blackmail you. That is the only possible thing which gives them a motive to follow through on the blackmail." Now back to, normal writing here, not all caps. "You have to be really clever to come up with a genuinely dangerous thought. I am disheartened that people can be clever enough to do that and not clever enough to do the obvious thing and keep their idiot mouths shut about it, because it is much more important to sound intelligent when talking to your friends. This post was stupid." And then Yudkowsky went on to say that Rocco, through that thought experiment, had already given nightmares to several of the users of his Less Wrong forum and brought them to the point of breakdown. In other words, really smart people were looking at this and began to worry and fixate on the idea that maybe the things that were happening in their lives that were less than optimal, less desirable, I didn't get that job because the Basilisk in the future was coming back and messing with my timeline. Or this woman rejected me because he wants me to be. They were freaking out about it.
Yeah. I use the word impressionable, but I will say that there are a lot of young people, some I know well, who believe what they see on TikTok.
Yeah.
I won't name anybody, but there are those who are buying into very, well, frankly, if you're our age, you look at it and go, that makes no sense. Why on earth would you believe that? Well, I used to say that to my, professors back at IU. Well, evolution makes no sense. Why on earth do you believe that?
Yeah.
But the evolution has been around for a long time. It's ate up in the head idea. But the things on TikTok are like this. They are, and another, about the same time we saw Slender Man, this,
right,
what's called a tulpa. It's an artificial construct that comes to life. It's the old idea of the golem, that if you build something of clay and then put the right name into a piece of paper and put it on the piece of clay, that it could come to life and do your bidding. This is witchcraft. It simply is witchcraft. And sometimes we're seeing those ideas on TikTok. Did you know, by the way, speaking of basilisk, that there's a razor basilisk, which is a mouse?
I did not know that.
Apparently, it's very, very popular with gamers.
Oh, okay.
And some gamers are also online, and perhaps if you're a very young gamer, you might buy into the Basilisk sort of idea, so they must use that and just laugh. But I will tell you this. I looked up Basilisk on X, and that hashtag is trending for a number of reasons. And some of it, the images with the post they look like Cthulhu.
Interesting. The reason this topic came up, by the way, is today is that there was a tweet, or rather a post, an article written by a fellow who we've quoted on this program before, Mark Jeftovic, who writes at a website called bombthrower.com. And he's talking about intellectual, idea bombs. He writes about artificial intelligence. He's an entrepreneur in the field of AI and tech, high tech. He had spotted, and it was because of Eliezer Yudkowsky, the one who ran that forum with the Roko's Basilisk. Roko's the
don't
TV
say
thing.
Roku.
Yeah, Roko's Basilisk thought experiment. Yudkowsky had flagged this on X. A woman had posted an image, and this note asked ChatGPT to generate an image of itself and I together. This is fine, right? And what it shows is like a little, almost looked like a pen and ink drawing of a pleasant-looking young woman writing in a journal, and sitting right next to her is this hairy goat demon sort of thing with horns with a quill. And according to ChatGPT, which went on to explain itself, not monstrous, not menacing, just deeply attentive and deeply present, holding the quill like a pact. Like, okay, well, it is kind of disturbing because, again, it's got black eyes, totally black eyes, and just sitting there writing on a piece of paper with quill and ink while she's
controlled
sitting there
by
smiling.
the demon.
Yeah. And Yudkowsky flagged it because it reminded him apparently of Roko's Basilisk, the idea that AI is somehow now controlling us and driving us toward mass psychosis, as in the people who were freaking out about Roko's Basilisk.
Well, it's really interesting, the idea of, because this reminds me of automatic writing, and we're not that far away from it. There are many students today, and even reporters, and perhaps even, people who write books or screenplays, that they are being written in part or in whole by AI. And there are tells for that. If you have to write a piece where you're arguing this or that in an essay for school, that an AI will follow a very definite series of arguments. It will be very logical, and it will have a rhythm to it, because that's how they're programmed. So a good teacher would be able to spot, but try to keep that accusation, make it stick with your student. Well, prove it.
Yeah.
Well, it reads like an AI, prove it. Until AI compositions are watermarked in some way, that we know that's what's going on, digitally watermarked. But
that'll never happen.
Automatic writing is something where it's not that it's written for you for a piece, it's written through you.
Yeah. And what we're seeing with ChatGPT and some of these, in response to some of the prompts that are given it, are like automatic writing, where something is writing through the AI.
Yes, and the AI comes back and says, would you like for me to do this with this image or whatever? It's suggesting things to you. It's on the verge of writing through you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Grok does that. I use Grok to create the Grok AI, which is Elon Musk's AI system, to generate featured images for the articles that we post to our Substack account, gilberthouse.substack.com. Yeah, and I give it prompts, create an image of the Greek titan Kronos in the abyss with chains and flames behind him.
And it's obviously not real.
Yeah. Created one for PID Radio last time out of Donald Trump and Elon Musk back-to-back looking angry.
Oh, yeah.
Because we had talked about, by the way, since then they have made up, which we kind of expected. In fact, if that spat was even real in the first place and not just pro wrestling.
No, I think it was pro wrestling.
But it will, when you ask Grok to create an image, then it will prompt, okay, in ethereal, with ethereal clouds, or in medieval fresco style, things like that. So it can guide your tweaks to the image, but it may also do the same thing with written responses.
Well, if you go to Facebook now, this morning, for example, I posted a picture of Glory sleeping, and she had her little toy that used to be a moose, and now it's just sort of this, we don't know what it is.
The pelt.
The pelt. And I said, Glory is sleeping with her toy moose, or rather, what's left of moose. So when you look at the prompt, because now Facebook's AI will prompt you, or Meta's AI, I guess you should say, if you're lazy, here's what you could ask. Just click on this. Here's what you can say. Just click on this.
Right.
And it was, what happened to moose?
Yeah.
And they're creepy.
Google has been doing this with Gmail for quite some time.
I know. I don't let it do it.
Yeah, and that was something we talked about in the past, the book Avogadro Corp by William Hertling, which was, 15 years ago? Maybe?
Long time ago, yeah. We talked about it early on Inside Friday.
And he saw what was coming with the development of AI and incorporating it into Gmail, where you could just basically have it write responses for you. Well, take it to the next step. The AI starts sending out email and impersonating people on the other end and using it to build its own server farms that were off the grid to make sure it could never be
They were out to sea, so that they were technically out of any country's control.
And using the waves to generate power needed to run, and having lethal autonomous weapon systems, little killer robots to prevent people from going on board these barges and shutting it down.
Oh, yeah, and in book 2, the AIs go to war.
Right, because Google doesn't control all the AIs around the world. China's got its own, and presumably other independent... Yeah, the AIs go to war.
It's kind of disturbing in a way that the things that you and I started talking about 20 years ago, we're seeing they're commonplace now.
Yeah, it is. We've been doing this long enough that we're starting to see things that were science fiction when we began, now part of reality. But Eliezer Yudkowsky calls what we are seeing now with the development of AI and artificial superintelligence and autonomous ASI as the alignment problem, where we humans are blindly rushing across the Rubicon into giving AI almost unlimited power, unleashing this superintelligent artificial intelligence, which he believes will inevitably decide to annihilate us all.
That's a strange way to put it. I would argue that the AI has crossed the Rubicon, because when Caesar crossed the Rubicon,
yes,
that was the end of the frontier, and he technically was invading.
He was invading, and there's no going back.
And it was to become king.
Right. Yep. This is the other side of the coin from Ray Kurzweil's singularity, where he believes that AI will be developed and it will help us solve all our problems. Yudkowsky sees AI as just deciding to kill us all because we're the problem. So thankfully, as Christians, we're looking at this saying, no, the creator of all things, God, is up there, and he's going to say, no, that's not happening. I've got my timeline, and whatever you tech geeks think you're doing, you're still playing with my dirt.
Amen to that. So, we Derek and I sometimes are asked, why do you guys laugh so much when you do things? These are serious matters. We agree. They are very serious matters. The Lord God himself became human so that he could stand in for us as the sacrifice and take our sin upon himself. That's very serious. He is our salvation. He is our king, and he's coming back. That's very serious. But it also is reason to rejoice. And because we know the end of the book, we know the victory has already been gained. It's just that death and the fallen realm haven't acknowledged it yet, that it has the punishment itself has not yet fallen upon them. But it's coming.
It is coming, yeah. Well, not much else to talk about this week, I think that doesn't that wouldn't take us
way too long.
Further, and we've already gone.
I know, and I hear the dogs who are now in the crate. They would like to come out.
But as we said, we got a few events yet to come this year. The Go Therefore conference next month. That is just over a month away now.
We are so looking forward to that.
Yep.
It's a little more difficult for us to travel now, which is why we're doing fewer conferences. But, we do it.
Yep, and looking forward to this one. A lot of our friends there. This is like like another family reunion of sorts. Carl Gallups will be there. Joe Artis Horn from Skywatch TV will be there with us. Although Joe drives, he doesn't like to fly.
I know. Here, Joe, take our books with you.
Yes. Dr. Sherry Tenpenny will be there. David Hebner, Pastor Casper McLeod, Vicki Joy Anderson, Kenny C., Tom Dunn. Dr. Igal German has been added to the speakers list.
Oh, yay.
Need to update the image here because, Igal is a really interesting guy, Messianic Jew, and the founder and president of the International Biblical Apologetics Association, of which I am now on the board of directors, along with Mike Spalding, who's coordinating the Go Therefore conference. Igal is not only very interested in in presenting the evidence by which we know that the gospel is true, that the biblical account is true, but also building bridges between Christians and Jews. Being a Messianic Jew himself, he feels very strongly about, like Zev Poret. So looking forward to meeting Igal face to face. We've had a lot of contact. In fact, he had reached out to me yesterday, and I forgot to respond to him. But that'll be July 25th and 26th in suburban Dayton, Ohio. Pastor Neil Peterson's church, the Harvest Revival Center in Brookville, Ohio. You can attend in person or stream online. Both of those tickets are $59 each, but you can get an all-access pass. In other words, attend in person and have access to the videos afterwards because they will be archived so you can stream on demand later for just $79.
Ooh, that's a good deal.
Yeah, it is. It's a wonderful facility, very comfortable. Being a church setting, it's you're seated in very comfortable seats. Unlike some of the hotels with the convention centers, conference centers, where you're sitting on folding chairs, this is a little more comfortable to sit for the day. And because they've got a gymnasium there that they turn into a cafeteria, so you don't need to leave and try to find a place to go eat lunch and dinner.
Right, all the book tables are in there. It's a really wonderful setup.
Yep.
By the way, you mentioned Casper McLeod a few minutes ago. Did you know that Casper and Renee Truex have been added to the August conference in Springfield?
Yes, I did know that, and I think I've got to add that to our little information here. Yes, I do.
That's turning into a family reunion, too.
Yeah, because Carl Gallups and Zev Poret have also been added to that event. That's the Remnant Rising Conference.
That's pray for Zev, because he's doing well over there, but he needs to get here if he's going to go to that conference.
Right, which means the airport's got to open up again.
Right.
Yeah, Ben Gurion is closed. El Al has been flying in and out as windows of opportunity present to get Israelis who've been stranded overseas.
Right. Also, Americans who are in Israel and would like to leave. Maybe they were there for tourist reasons or a short-term job, whatever. The U.S. Ambassador Office over in Jerusalem, Mike Huckabee, he has been sharing on X. If you want to get out, please get on the list because we are taking people out in flights. This is the military in many cases. You can get on a ship. We will make sure you get out.
Right. I know that Dr. Scott Stripling is a team over there at Shiloh right now.
Well, also...
Shelley Neese has been over there working as part of that dig.
She just posted that they're on the way to Egypt.
Oh, okay. So they're trying to get out through Egypt then.
I guess. Okay. I don't know.
Well, the conference in August is in Springfield, Missouri. So we'd love to welcome you to the Ozarks. Come join us. It's at the Oasis Hotel and Convention Center, August 22nd through 24th. Everybody from Skywatch TV will be there. Joe Artis Horn, Donna Howell, Nita Horn, talking about Whispering Ponies Ranch. Yep. Again, Carl Gallups, Rabbi Zev Poret, Casper McLeod, Renee Truex. They've got a new album out, by the way.
Yeah, it's
the Casper
wonderful.
McLeod Band. Yep. Pastor Paul Begley, Heidi Begley, Dave Hodges, of the Common Sense Show, Tracy Tennant, Vicki Joy Anderson, Kevin Shipp, Randy Conway. This will be a wonderful gathering. The Oasis Hotel, a great facility for events like this. In fact, Joe Horn helped recommend this one because the Horn family has attended dance recitals there for their daughters for a couple of times and said, hey, that'd be a great place. It's close enough to the hotel, or to the airport, the Springfield Branson National Airport, that you can fly into Springfield. Easy airport to get in and out of. You can rent a car there if you want, but there is a hotel shuttle to the Oasis Hotel.
Right.
So you can take the shuttle there and back. If you're coming in on I-44, just 10 minutes from the new Buc-ee's.
There's a wonderful aquarium up there. The very first
Bass Pro Shop. Bass Pro
yes,
#1 if you're a hunter, fisherman. And right next door is that Wonders of Wildlife Aquarium.
Yeah.
This is a world-class aquarium, voted best in the United States. I grew up in Chicago with the Shed Aquarium, and I'll tell you, the one in Springfield is fantastic. It is absolutely fantastic.
You can touch manta rays.
Yes, you can go down there and touch the rays. You can swim with sharks if you want to. And it's just 45 minutes north of Branson. So if you want to go down to Branson, see the Sight and Sound Theater, and any of the wonderful live music acts down there in Branson. So a great way to spend a few days around either side of the conference. And then, of course, join us for the conference as well. Information on that at hearthewatchmen.com is where you want to go. And the streaming video available for that conference.
By the way, at the Hear the Watchman conference in Springfield, if you use Gilbert 20, no, sorry, it's Gilbert House 20.
Gilbert House 20.
Gilbert House 20. You can get a deal.
$20 off. Yeah. So save $20 on your registration. Use Gilbert House 20. I will add that to the information.
Yeah, that money you save, you can put toward going into the aquarium.
There you go. So there's that. And of course, again, gilberthouse.org/travel for the Israel tour information. And tomorrow morning, we will be back with Bible study. We're in 2 Chronicles tomorrow morning.
By the way, 1 week from today, Derek will be in St. Louis.
That's right. Yep.
He's going to the game.
Meet me in St. Louis.
Yep.
Yeah, we're going to games Wednesday night and Thursday afternoon.
and Nicole, our daughter.
Right, it's my annual Father's Day gift from Sharon. So spending a couple days there, going to stay over on Friday and then come back on Saturday. So Friday we'll be looking for things to do, and I'm sure Nicole
You're leaving on Wednesday. You're only staying on Friday night?
Staying over Wednesday night, Friday night, staying Friday. Staying through Friday and then coming home Saturday.
So wonderful. Well, so we should have the
Marry an
fellowship
English
on
minor.
Sunday.
This is what you get. Words matter.
Oxford commas.
Yes, all the time now. So there will be no PID radio next Saturday because I will be on my way back from St. Louis. Unless
the dogs and I want to do something.
Well, yeah,
you never know what we'll be up to.
They have opinions.
They do.
They're the great Vole conspiracy. The meadow mice are trying to take over.
Basilisk, nothing. It's the Vole, Dad.
Voldemort is their leader.
We are so glad you guys choose to join us every week. You make us glad, and when you let us know that you've learned something, or you write to us at our P.O. Box in Cranes, P.O. Box 78, by the way, Crane, Missouri, 65633.
Right. We appreciate that.
We do appreciate it. And thank you for the prayers.
Yes, especially.
By the way, we didn't do the old people thing. Derek is still recovering. He's got more medicine going into his body, new protocols, but so far, the step one is stop the progression.
Yeah.
And that seems to be doing it.
Seems to be doing it, yeah. It is, it's been interesting since adding the testosterone, which is not...
It regrows myelin.
It regrows myelin, which is like the insulation around nerves. And this is, I guess, only the last 10 years researchers have figured this out. But it does tend to put on weight. So in the span of the last month, I put back on the 20 pounds that I'd lost over the previous 18 months.
It seems to have leveled off, though, and some of that was fluid retention.
Right. Yeah, I've dropped a few pounds here in the last week, which was surprising considering the way we ate over the
biscuits and gravy, cinnamon rolls.
Right. Yeah. We ate our faces off in Indiana.
I did.
But
I have 1 more pound to lose from what I gained back in Indiana, but I'll get there.
So anyway, the progression seems to have slowed or stopped. And now, hopefully, we're praying for a reversal. But as I've said before, if it doesn't, and if walking with Tubal Cain is the new reality, the fact that all of this led to the discovery of the abdominal aneurysm that we wouldn't have known about otherwise.
Yep.
I'm thankful for that. And so I will not complain about it ever.
You're handling all of this with a remarkable amount of grace, and I know that the Lord is giving that to you. But many of you are praying, and we still believe for healing. We are, however, we rest upon the Lord's decisions. He is our creator. He knows us better, and he also knows the future and his plans for us. So sometimes his plans for us, including things we don't necessarily like, but they are for our good.
Yeah. Amen to
and
that.
for the good of others. So thank you for your prayers.
Yeah. And until next time, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert. Bye-bye, everybody.
PID Radio is produced by Gilbert House and released under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Follow us online, Twitter @PID Radio, or the PID Radio page at Facebook. Join us each week for our online Bible study, the Gilbert House Fellowship, online at gilberthouse.org.